doctor is in. So anyway, oh man, what is that? Excuse me. That was crazy. That's what that was. Anyway, what I wanted to get to now is I started to get this story up earlier and it wouldn't come up. So apparently they finally decided that I'm authorized to look at it. So this story is written by Roger Landry. He said the unalienable right to put forth in the First Amendment is put forth in the First Amendment of the Constitution and guarantees us the expression of information, ideas, opinions, free of government restrictions or reprisals based on what? Content. In an ideal world, this may be our greatest tool to hold those who govern us in check. However, in reality, it does not exist in its true form or maybe even at all anymore. Most of us who own, run, or visit websites and the social media of the liberty persuasion have seen and heard horror stories pertaining to the people being put on government watch lists, being harassed, losing jobs, generally being ostracized because they dare to voice dissent concerning actions, restrictions, or mandates imposed by our government. As a matter of fact, if you're reading this, you are by your very nature probably already on a watch list somewhere. So, and then he points out in the article that I got arrested for covering Drag Queen Story Hour at a public library downtown, and they tried to charge me with trespassing. Why? Because I was reporting on Drag Queen Story Hour, and they had child rapers in there that they didn't want exposed. We exposed them. Anyway, by the way, I got to thank my friend Shannon for making that happen. She's the one that did all the research. Anyway, I'm aware of a documented case of a young woman being put on such a watch list because she was an advocate for Ron Paul's 2008 election bid 11 years ago. And this tyranny has only progressed. Would someone care to explain to me how this makes a fine, patriotic young woman a threat to the country? In fact, it does not. What it does is it makes her an informed and concerned citizen exercising her rights of assembly and free speech. Therefore, it is a travesty. The only reason this type of situation exists at all is because of the entrenched ruling structure, fearful of losing their grip on power via an awakening population. Now, you guys remember the Bundy Ranch fiasco, where you had to be penned up in the freedom of speech First Amendment area in order to speak your mind. Your unalienable right to free speech was alienated. In the First Amendment zones, or the free speech zones, that is a restriction of your constitutional rights. It is therefore repugnant to the Constitution. But then, as you heard in the discussion we just had with Tommy Attaway, you don't really have those rights anymore. It doesn't stop there. Many campuses and an increasing number of public events now have restricted areas called by the same name. I can tell you that when I went out to a protest at the San Jacinto Monument, and I was handing out leaflets for the show to promote my show this several years ago. And the park police came to me and told me to get my ass back in the free speech zone before they arrested me. Why? Because I was handing out leaflets. Technically, that would be my constitutional God-given right. But not to the park police at the San Jacinto Monument. You need to understand that if a truly independent person of morals and character who by their very beliefs threatens a radical shift in the way government does business is elected to high office, especially to the presidency of this country, then all hell could break loose. There would be an instantaneous upset in the balance of the corrupt power that has existed for so long. Corruption, cronyism, favoritism, and backroom politics in general will suffer huge focus, scrutiny, and exposure. My friends, that is going on right now. Having to deal strictly above board and in a truly transparent fashion would leave a considerable number of these so-called ruling elite, like Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick, out on their butts, or at a minimum in serious doubt as to how to exercise their stolen power taken from we, the people. So far, for those who rule from the shadows, this must not be allowed to take place. But how do you prevent it? Disinformation and misinformation is the first step. Buy up all of the mainstream media and blanket the American public with pleasant things that are soft and fuzzy and entertaining. and infuse this with your message to the point where we all think and feel that this is the way it's supposed to be or should be. Or a blanket on the masses with messages of fear and foreboding should the first part not work, while promising you that the government will do whatever is necessary, including tyranny or treason, to keep we, the people, safe and secure from our intentionally manufactured fears. I could remind you that we just had a veteran kicked out of his house in Dallas. His house, he owned it. It was paid for. They kicked him out of his house. They sent men with guns and pried him out of there because he couldn't pay the rent to the state anymore. And it was repugnant to the state of Texas to allow this veteran to continue to live in the house that he had paid for many years ago because the state wasn't getting its share of the deal. That is a communist idea that indicates to you the complete loss of liberty. So, second step, corruption, cronyism, and favoritism by your candidates. Coddle, pamper, indoctrinate them, but most of all, addict them to the power, fame, and importance. In essence, make them faithful lapdogs. And if this is not sufficient, find something, or facilitate it, to be used as leverage over them. Perhaps something as blatant as blackmail? Ensure that all the mechanisms or money necessary to buy, bribe, or extort any possible adversaries be made available. Third step, intimidation. If you realize that any person or person of scruples, values, compassion, you can't trust him. He's not trustworthy. Let's get him off of the air to save the American people from his craziness. He's on the fringe. He's an eccentric, unfit to be listened to. Or in the case, maybe govern, intimidate a popular conscientious leader or candidates following, you and I, for instance, through venues such as government watch list. Make it so that you can't get a loan, a job, or even government assistance. Make it absolutely impossible to obtain these things because they no longer have a high enough social score to be worthy. As the chaplain Gypsy Robert was pointing out a few minutes ago, if you are a gun sales store, or you sell guns, you sell ammo, or now even if you are a member of the Oath Keepers, these card swiping companies that allow you to use your credit card to buy things will no longer accept payments from you because you are a social pariah. You are a danger to society, and therefore you should not be allowed to participate. This has, in the result of the majority of cases, caused people to back off or to disassociate themselves from a cause because it's messing up their lives or getting them out of their comfort zone. The few that protest louder, well, pen them up in obscure, unconstitutional free speech zones, label them as fanatics, and if these ideas fail, then brand them as malcontents, harmful to society, domestic terrorists, lock them up for life, or assassinate them. In essence, by illegal executive orders, unconstitutional laws, or outright treason. This quote foretells the disastrous state of our freedom of speech in this country today. This reality, we are all aware of the illegal activity being perpetrated on we, the people, to deny or permanently silence our inalienable right to herald the truth. And this only serves to strengthen those that would perpetrate harm upon us. A very wise man, Voltaire, once said, "I may disapprove of what you have to say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it." Voltaire, by the way, one of the discoverers of electricity. That's why we refer to electricity in volts, because of Voltaire. Anyway, back to the story. I have a pretty good recollection of what freedom of speech is, or at least what it was supposed to be, according to the Constitution. But those of you graduating from high school or college today, you've been brought up in a system of perpetrated propaganda, veiled tyranny. It is their concept or understanding of this right that is different from what our founders envisioned. Do they feel the privilege granted by the tyrannical government that has supplanted this right is in fact what our founding fathers bequeathed to us? The answer to these questions scream volumes about the deep state of tyranny that we the people face in America today.